I'm Chance Shiflett, the field CTO here at Rev, and I work closely with investigators, defense attorneys, and prosecutors every day, helping them get the most out of Rev's AI tools. And over time, I've developed a set of best prompting practices that I share with them to make their work faster, cleaner, and more reliable. In this session, we'll walk through those key principles together. And to make it real, I've uploaded 2 files from a single case. Body-worn camera footage and the radio chatter from a traffic stop that escalated into an officer-involved shooting and ultimately a deceased suspect. Now, this is a tragic incident, and our goal here isn't to judge what happened or how it went down, but to demonstrate how Rev can help legal teams process hours of messy evidence, uncover critical details, and prepare cases more efficiently while keeping human judgment at the center. Let's get started. So in the platform, you can see that we have the 2 files selected. We've got the officer worn body camera footage over here on the right, and the audio frequency or the radio chatter that occurred throughout the incident. In the center, we have some suggested prompts that our system is displaying based off of its understanding of the files themselves, and the chat here at the bottom. And where we're going to start is trying to understand why prompting matters, right, in these best practices. So let's start by asking it something really vague, like summarize this event. So now what it's going to do is it's going to start thinking and pulling this information. Now you can already see that we've got a general high-level summary around some key themes. We've got initial contact and escalation, a vehicle pursuit and the crash, foot pursuit and search, and the final confrontation and officer-involved shooting, and some aftermath information here. Now, this is a good place to start, but let's give it a more detailed prompt. Let's ask it to summarize the body camera transcript with attention to the timeline of the officer's commands, the suspect's responses, and flag contradictions in the radio chatter. Now you can already see that it's giving us very structured output. Right? We went from a generic overview to now having a really detailed and usable analysis that's timeline-based, tied to commands, responses, and including the contradictions. As we're going through these facts and these details, we can click on any citation, and that will ground these facts in the source of where it was discovered. So clicking on this with the timeline of between 4 minutes, 37 seconds to 6 minutes and 57 seconds, we see that he had been living in his car for 7 months. It is now telling us where this was pulled out in the transcript. So we can verify that what the AI is pulling together and uncovering is in fact true. And this leads us into the first best prompting practice, is to be clear and specific. By being clear and specific, you're able to get more detailed facts that you can then use in your building of timelines, reports, and discovery reviews. Now, the next best prompting practices is around when to use personas and how using a persona changes the details that are being extracted. Let's start looking at a more detailed lens through the eyes of an investigator. We're going to tell it that it's an investigator, and from these files we want to extract all investigative leads, names, vehicle descriptions, timestamps of key actions, and discrepancies between the radio chatter and the body camera footage. Now we can see that it's already starting to pull out those details, the vehicle information, the suspect description, key timestamps and actions, location details, witness and resident information, and then before digging into the key discrepancies and investigation points. And so this is, for an investigator, a great place to start so that you can begin asking those follow-up questions and trying to understand where this could go next within the mountain of evidence that you have to work with. For our next persona, let's look at this through the eyes of a defense attorney. So we're going to tell it it's a defense attorney. We're going to ask it to identify statements in the radio chatter that contradict what's in the body camera footage, right? Taking into consideration the natural delays in what's reported, and provide verbatim quotes and timestamps. Now, taking into consideration those natural delays in what's reported is really critical to making sure that the contradictions we're looking for aren't just discrepancies between the time that the officer is being run over and then them saying that they were almost run over radio, right? Because there is a natural difference between what's happening live and when they can report it. This prompt will help declutter some of it. And of course, with these prompts, it does take a little bit longer than something general, but we can now see some of the things that are starting to come in, like the timing of the suspect entry into the house, location discrepancies, shots fired timing. So when we start to look into these as a defense attorney, we see that the first contradiction here is around the suspect is now inside the bedroom, and this is the radio communication. The body camera is saying that the officers are still actively searching the backyards. And so as a defense attorney, what I'm seeing here now is telling me that I don't have the full story, that just one body camera isn't enough to corroborate what's happening over the radio. And so this signals to me that there's missing evidence from this case analysis that I then have to follow up with. For our final role, let's look at this through the lens of a prosecutor. We're going to tell it that it's a prosecutor, and we want to extract testimony from these files relevant to establishing the timeline of events leading to the shooting, with a focus on officer commands and the suspect's actions, and organize it by timestamps. Now, as we're looking through this, and we scroll up to the beginning, we can start to see where some of the AI is struggling, right? It's provided a very detailed report. It's given it to us in the way we're asking and prompting. But some key difference here is the 6:57 a.m. initial contact. We know from earlier, and me personally from looking through this, that the incident actually occurred more closely to 9 p.m. And so if we click on this around initial contact, we can see this is happening here. But what it's doing is it's confusing the timestamp of the body camera footage with the time of day. And so again, this is another really important thing to hit home, is the need for citations in every fact that's being pulled. Because as an attorney, as somebody that has a legal responsibility to represent the facts of the case, this is critical. You can't go into court saying, well, this occurred around 6 a.m. when it really occurred, at 9 p.m. at night. That's almost a 12-hour difference. But if we're looking at this report as a whole, it's giving us some really good structured information. And we can just eliminate some of the timestamps that we have here and do some manual adjusting. AI it's not quite there yet to where it can fully interpret. If we were to get a little bit more detailed here, I think we could pull out some more relevant timestamps, especially if we probably base it off of the radio chatter itself and not the timestamps from the audio and video. So we've covered the the importance of roles within prompting. Now, the next concept is around breaking down large questions. And to give you an example of what we're talking about, let's ask it to do something really big, right? Find all the contradictions, summarize the officer's actions, identify suspect movement, and build a timeline. So these are, this is quite a bit. And so what we'll see here is that it's going to move through all of these themes and headers, pulling out these key topics, but it may not be as detailed as if we were to separate out each of those commands ourselves. In looking at this, we've got the right buckets that we've asked for. We've got suspect movement patterns, we've got contradictions and discrepancies, officer actions, and timelines of events. Now we can see here that these timelines of events are different from the ones before, right? When we asked it to provide timestamps, it gave us timestamps in time, AM, PM, with the time of the length of the file. This time around, it's given us a timeline based off of the file duration. So we know here at 4:37 and at 6:57, this is generally the range of the body camera footage. And we can dive into this and it will take us there at 5:22, which is within this range. Now this is pretty good. We got initial contact, we've got the pursuit phase, we've got containment and search, we've got final confrontation. Let's take a look, though, at the officer commands. We've got the actions and summary. We've got the primary responding officer, support officer. Let's ask it to just look at all the officer commands in order and list them. Now you can see that what it's showing is a highly detailed list of officer commands as opposed to what we got before. And so going back to that first principle, be specific and be clear, we can already see the value of breaking down some of those large prompts into smaller, more specific, more clear prompts where we can get really granular details and the LLM can focus on just that as a task. Now, I've kind of been layering this one in our entire discussion, and this is going to be critical moving forward. And that's to always check the source. Don't believe anything that AI puts in front of you, right? It is very important because AI can hallucinate. As much as we make strides to prevent hallucinations, they can still sneak in there. And so always review your citations, making sure that what's stated in it is true and correct. And we can see here that this citation is in fact true. When it says get on the ground, we have get on the ground, let me down, let me your hair, police department, get on the ground. So we know that this fact is true and correct. Never take facts for granted. Always verify it in the source. Now, this is another important best practice, and try to avoid leading or biased prompts, right? Your role is to gather the facts, right? And so asking it to take on the role of a prosecutor or a defense attorney or an investigator is very different than asking it a leading or biased question. For example, let's identify where the suspect is lying. Now, we can see here that it's already getting confused. It's confusing the lying with the situation of the event itself, thinking that I'm asking for when the suspect was potentially lying down. We can ask it another way. So instead, let's ask it to find where the suspect is guilty. So this is giving us a very detailed breakdown of how it thinks the suspect is guilty. And this is exactly what not to do, right? Asking AI to decide credibility or guilt introduces bias and really crosses the line into judgment. That's not AI's role. It's your role as a human being. And so any information here is going to be skewed. Now, if you were to ask it in a different way and give it the rules and elements that constitute the crime, then it would be a more unbiased approach because it's looking to see where those actions fit in certain elements. But asking AI to make a judgment call or to decide credibility or guilt is extremely dangerous and will get you into a ton of trouble. So let's recap the mistakes that we've encountered along the way. Vague prompts produce vague results. Overloaded prompts produce scattered results. Biased prompts produce a distorted analysis of the truth, and skipping validation risks big errors. So this case makes one thing very clear. AI can accelerate evidence review, but it can't replace human judgment. So Rev surfaces these contradictions. It can build timelines, but deciding what's credible, what matters, and how it ultimately fits into your strategy, that's your job as an attorney, an investigator, and really just a human being. Think of Rev as your high-speed research assistant, not the decision maker. So to wrap up, be specific. Use personas for perspective. Break down tasks into smaller steps. Validate against the source and keep prompts neutral. In high-stakes cases like this, those principles make the difference between generic output and real investigative insight. Try these prompting practices in your own case prep inside Rev. And if you have any tips or questions, drop them in the comments. We'll feature some in future deep dives, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next session.